Hello, it's week 24 of season 5 of the Andy Griffith Show. This week's episode title is Guest in the House. Barney, Andy's cousin Gloria from Siler City is coming to visit. She's just getting over a broken engagement, and the guy's name is Frank. And Andy's telling Aunt Dee that he hardly knows Gloria, and he can't understand why she wants to come here. And Aunt Dee says he needs to be nice to her anyway. And then Helen comes over, and Andy and Helen confirm their date for tomorrow night. And then next day, Andy's waiting on Gloria's bus to arrive, sitting there with Floyd. And Floyd asks where you are. He hadn't seen you for a while. And Andy says, oh, he's in Raleigh for the weekend, and he'll be back Monday morning, because you're not in this episode. And then Floyd starts talking about a girl he once knew who went through a broken engagement herself. And then the bus comes, and Gloria gets off. She's real pretty. And Andy walks up, and they have a nice short talk, and then he takes her home to Aunt Dee. And Aunt Dee hugs her, and then Ulti meets her, and he says he'll teach her how to play darts after lunch. And that night they're all sitting on the front porch, and Andy sings and plays a sad song on the guitar. And Aunt Dee says, Andy, play something happy, 'cause she don't think that Gloria needs to hear a sad song right now. And they all start talking about her breakup anyway. And she says she'll be okay. She hopes she and Frank can be good friends. And Andy says that's a good attitude. And then Aunt Bee starts talking about a breakup that Andy had in high school, how he took it really hard. He fell out of a tree that he had climbed up to spy on his ex and her new boyfriend, and it embarrasses him. And the next day, Gloria comes to visit Andy at work in the courthouse. And she types a letter for him, and they start laughing and talking, looking at the typewriter real closely together. And then at that point, Helen walks in, and Andy introduces them, but it's real awkward. And then after Gloria leaves, Helen says she sure is pretty, isn't she? And Andy says, yeah, but then they change the subject to the time of their date tonight. And that night after supper, Gloria gets a call from Frank, long distance, but she refuses to take the call. She says she'll be fine, and that Andy and Helen better go on to their movie. And then Andy invites Gloria along. And it's real clear to the audience from Helen's facial expression that she's not happy about that invitation he just made. And after the movie's over, Andy finds out in the car really clearly how unhappy she is about tonight, plus about the fact that Andy later made another invitation to Gloria to come to dinner tomorrow night. So Andy says he'll get her a date, and she says, okay, get her Gooder. And at first he says that's not fair, but then he agrees. And at the restaurant, the four of them plan to go to miniature golf afterwards, even though Gooder is nervous about the cost. And then they plan to go for a walk down by the lake after that, even though Gooder is nervous about what to do with Gloria during the walk. And then Gooder asks Gloria to dance, and she don't want to, so he dances with Helen. And then Gloria decides she does want to dance with Andy to teach him some steps. And then Helen's real mad about that. And when Andy drives her home, she storms out of the car and into her house after she yells at Andy that if he wants to date Gloria, fine, just leave her out of it. And then at Andy's house, Gloria thanks Andy for being so nice to her, and then she kisses him on the lips before she goes to bed. And then Aunt Dee tells Andy that he was too nice to Gloria in front of Helen, and he needs to set things straight with Helen, so he goes to call her. And he and Helen decide on the phone to ask Frank to come see Gloria. So the next morning, to see whether they can get back together. So the next morning he does. He comes in and they do hug and kiss right in Andy's living room and decide to get back together. And then Helen and Andy kiss in the kitchen. So Aunt Dee feels awkward, and she goes outside to bring in the laundry. And then Gloria and Frank leave together the next day. Well, I wasn't in this episode, but I'll be back next week in the case of the punch in the nose. Well, good. That'll be week 25. See you all then.